And so understand that if you have a dream, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how rich, how poor, it can be realized. But you just have to get up and start something.
Yeah. So where can people get to listen to this radio show that's helping us to learn about financial independence?
Okay, where financial independence is concerned, my show is called Let's Talk Business. It is aired on Adventist Radio London. Adventist Radio London every Sunday from 6 p.m. to 7 for 1 hour. And what I do is I interview people who run businesses, who have exited businesses, and we talk about business. Now, the business people who we talk to are not necessarily corporate only. They're not necessarily entrepreneurs that run their own business only. Sometimes they are family inherited businesses that they run different types of businesses. And sometimes they have very, very good positions of leadership within an organization. And that too is good business. If you can market yourself to a decent position, a high position, let me put it that way, and get rewarded accordingly, that's good business. And these people will come and they will talk to you. And sometimes I myself will spend the hour and talk about a topic that my listeners are asking me frequent questions about. For example, there was a particular time when everybody was just asking me about family-run business. People who want to start a business, but they want to start it with a husband and the wife and the children and the auntie and the cousins. And by the time you finish, you're thinking, this is your dream. Why are we having everybody here? And then you're beginning to understand that business is not just business. It's sort of show that people have imposter syndrome. They're successful, but they don't know how to manage their success. So they become afraid to be too obvious before people where their worth is concerned. And so they don't want to make anybody feel left out. So they try to include everybody when this show was never for them. For everybody, it was just for them. So you get to tap into other aspects of people's beings as to what put a stop on us for becoming financially independent, for taking the chance and doing something that we dream about and would love to do because we're a little bit afraid and we didn't get that encouragement in times past. Or we have some narcissists in our life who remind us constantly that we are not good enough in one way or the other. And sometimes when you listen to the people who present their business and see where they're coming from and hear their stories, that's where the inspiration comes from. So it's Let's Talk Business, aired on Adventist Radio London every Sunday at 6 p.m. for an hour. And it's a listening, education, information, and inspiration. And you can check out, you can go into your search engine and put in Adventist Radio London and listen. It's on DAB, and then you will be able to listen on that. And once we have done the interview, we turn them into podcast. And the podcast is Spreaker, not speaker, Spreaker.com. So if you put in Spreaker.com, Let's Talk Business, it will come up with the people who I have interviewed.
Excellent. And I'll put the links in the description below. I've been honored to be on your show. I had a really good time. So definitely, I think it's worth people listening, especially as you've said, in the church or sometimes just the way we've been conditioned in life. We need to be open about certain things so they'll get that from the show. Yes. So you've had a long career in healthcare and leadership. What were some of the barriers, seeing as you're someone who's ambitious? So what were some of the barriers that you faced as you were trying to grow in your career?
Okay. Let's talk about some good stuff first. I'm making a sandwich here. Work with me. So some of the good things that happened to me. When I was young, there were people who saw the potential in me. And they may not have been rich at the time, but they invested in whatever ways they can. I remember a lady called Miss Evelyn. That's her name. She's based in Jamaica. God rest her soul, wherever she is. And I remember going to do exams and I didn't have lunch. And I was coming home one day from one of the exams, just wanting to get home. And I came across Miss Evelyn, and she lived right across the road from school. And she said, "Come by me tomorrow, lunchtime." I went by her. I was expecting some big lunch. This lady made cornmeal porridge. Cornmeal porridge. And when I finished eating it, she gave me a mango that fell from her tree. That was dessert. And
Yeah.
I went back over and I finished my exams. Right? And it's the little things. So I've got to say, thank God for those little things. Because we remember the people who do the great stuff, but we forget that there were little people who couldn't do what we wanted, but what they did was more than enough. Right? So there was her, there was my mother. My mother, I was sitting in exams and she was out selling. As she sells something, she would come in, buy lunch, and she'd make sure I have it. Then she'd go back and finish selling. So we didn't have a easy run. It wasn't one of those lives that you just walk into. Family members, my grandmother would make sure that school fees are paid. My auntie would make sure that I have a few nice clothes, that not everybody knows where I came from by virtue of how I was dressed. So the family would come around in that way. I had teachers who knew that I was just going to pass my exam, so I could sit in their classes for free. And if you add up how much money other people pay to attend their classes, you realize how blessed you were. There are the issues. I've always had people somewhere along the line who looks out for me. And I think that was God ordered. That was divine providence, divine intervention. And to this day, I can say there isn't anything that I have asked God for that I need that has not been rendered to me to this day.
Amen.
And I'm not the best of Christian. I'm not saying that proudly. I'm not the best of Christians at times.
No, but I can truly say, from I was growing up until now, I can remember people doing real good things for me, families, strangers. Sometimes I don't even know why I get the help I get, but I've got it. And these are divine providences in my life. There are challenges, however, because when you're poor in a classist society, everybody decides where your place is. Now, I grew up with a mindset, my place is where God wants me to be. And when people ask me, who are you or who do you think you are? I used to answer them, I'm Claudia Patrice Welsh. And to this day, I look back and I said, yeah, girl, you had some confidence. Where you got it from? Yes, I was a bit of a, I was silent strong. You couldn't just get that past me. Yeah.
Right? So people would come and try to put you in what they think is your box. And you had to realize, I don't know how, because nobody ever come to me and said, don't let anybody put you in a box. But somehow, you know that some people are just mean. And you would not entertain them on that level. Yes. And then so that's the classism in Jamaica, the color prejudice. And when you're growing up, you had short hair and you get this perception of beauty being a light skin with long dark hair and so on. Those are things that you thought. And let me tell you something. By the time you're 12 years of age, however you're going to be as an adult, you're shaped for life. And that will tell you if you're successful or not, irrespective of the fact of you going to a university or not. Coming up in the work world, I would say, coming up in the work world, challenges I face would be racism, most of it, classism in Jamaica, but it wasn't so bad because everybody came from some background where we all trying our best. So it was more supportive in Jamaica than it was here. But when I came to England, culture shock. I had culture shock for about 5 years straight. 5 years. I've never been called a minority. That floored me a little bit. Going into a classroom, a university, and there are only 2 Black people inside that university, about 6 Indians or people of Asian descent, and the rest is just pure white people. And you're wondering, where is everybody? Growing up in an environment where you realize that most of your people, I'm talking about my Black people, are in poor deprived areas. In Jamaica, everybody has the same complexion to some degree. So you have the rich and the poor. But when you come and see that your race is that one, I struggled with that a lot. We didn't have anywhere where you would have hear me with my middle class mind now. You wouldn't have anywhere where you have a middle class, or there was no such place for the Black community. You just either live in the places that you live, and then a few of us who did well would go off and live into some white communities. And I looked at that and I said, how is that good for our self-image as a race and as a people and so on? So to some degree, I see it for what it is. I know who I am. I travel extensively. Nowadays, I make sure that I travel to country that I see people like myself who are successful, because I've got to remind myself that we are successful people. We're compassionate people. When everybody else have problem, we welcome them. When we have, no one welcome us so readily. So I've got to look at the plus side to us, and then I've got to see the space for what it is. And when you're coming up as a leader in such an environment, I've been in work where I am the only Black person in the department and the manager of the department. And I can see that some of my staff were not particularly happy. Somebody introduced me to a friend of theirs or someone they knew. This is my colleague. So I wasn't the manager. I just worked in the same place that she happened to work. So you have things like that that takes place. And I find, this is my personal experience, I'm a very driven and ambitious person, but I find that the climb to the top was hard. Hard when you're a Christian as well. It doesn't help. Because, you know, when you go to the leaving dues and the work get-togethers, and you can't have a sip, and your language is not the same, and we're not talking about French here, you know, and so on. And there are certain things that you won't do because of your belief. It stands out. So what do I do for that? I keep trotting on. I never stay one place too long. It wouldn't be long before I move on to somewhere else. But while I'm busy working, I began to invest in Jamaica just in case I want to run back home. I started to invest. I bought my little piece of land there. I bought my little property there. And yes, I have family in it and so on. And that's another story for another day. But it is there and it is yours. Because when it is time, can you hear me still?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Yes. For when it is time for you to move on and to, well, let us say, retire and have your plans, it's going to be very, very important that you have something to go back to and you have somewhere and people to rely on. So I learned very early, you don't break ties. Okay. You don't break, yes, you don't break ties at all. You don't break ties. So while I'm here, I meet good people. I surround myself with good people. I still continue going to church. That is very important. Still keep up with your church family. Still keep up with God. And as I said, sometimes I'm not the best Christian. I'm the first one to admit it. I won't even bother sit down here and play jokes and so on. But the fact that the environment is much different in a sense that is not as readily helpful, it's not as readily community-based as where you're coming from, then you've got to adapt. And you've got to adapt quite quickly. And so as a result of that, I do my savings, I do a little investment, and thing that I don't understand, I ask. And that is how things go for me. So yes, It's been tough. It's been challenging. The things that I would have loved to have done, I've done some I haven't, but I haven't lost sleep over it. And then I can also look at the positives. I have gone through quite a lot that now I can share. I can share with a younger radiographer, a younger person who's just come out of university. If they are in that space with me, I can now share with them and I can say to them, hey, have you tried this? Have you looked at that? What is it that you like? Something that you wish you had, nobody there to coach you and guide you. And so if I can provide that, I will do it. And I won't charge a penny for that one. That one I will do for free. The blessing will come from the Lord. But if you come to my master classes, you do have to pay, just to say.
Yeah. And so for the young people maybe who may have gone or are going through racism in the workplace, what would be your
Ideal.
advice on the best way to, yeah.
First of all, you have to be confident in yourself. I rock a lot of bantu knots. They call them in Jamaica Chinese bump. I keep my hair nice and natural. I have beautiful skin tone. And a lot of us black people, we have lovely skin. We have lovely hair. Love yourself. When you love yourself, you teach others how to respect you. They don't have to love you, but they've got to respect the fact that you have self-value and self-worth. That's part of it. And once you understand that, also understand that some of the people who are racist against you, they're only jealous because in their mind, you're supposed to be poor, you're supposed to be ignorant, you're not supposed to be as intelligent. And when you come up and you're going against all of what they have learned, and you're showing them up to be who they are, you're sort of highlighting, they're beginning to look and see who they truly are. It's their problem. So don't let anyone live in your head rent free, projecting onto you issues that have to do with themselves. Because if it's not racism, if you go to Jamaica, it's colorism, classism, whichever people you get, it's gonna be some ism. Your self-confidence, your self-value has got to be there. And parents, I ask you, please, 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 validate your children. Validate them at home. Because whatever you do or fail to do when they become adults is who they will be or fail to be. Validate your people at home. So you're an adult and you never get that validation. And now you're working, you have a good job, you go to university, and so on. Racism is hitting you one form or the other. You understand who you are. Also, note that your opportunities don't lie in one place. Plenty people leave from all over the world to come to England for better. I'm just saying, is there somewhere else that you could go and prosper for better? Does it have to be that you sit here fighting battles that you cannot win? I'm just saying. So thinking outside of the box, broadening your horizon. That's another place. So if you're in a place where there is a institutionalized glass ceiling, institutionalized racism, it means that with everything there, the factor that needs changing will have to be with you. So think outside the box. I've seen British born people, black people, of what you call it now, Caribbean and African parentage. I have seen them gone over to where the land of their forefathers, and they have explored opportunities and they're doing very well. Do not limit yourself. And the other thing is, if you're employed and you're going through all of that, look at what you do well. Look at what you enjoy. Start your business. Build your integrity. Be an honest person. Build your character. Start your own business. So you might forbear all the struggles for a while. That is okay. Forbear and forbear. But at some point while you're forbearing, you're reading a book about how you're going to, whatever it is your interest is, or how you're going to look at what works for you. Talk to somebody. who has been through racism, how did they overcome? Look at the different opportunities that are bare to you, and look at how prepared you are or not prepared, how prepared you are not, and see, what do I need to get there? Do not limit yourself to anybody and sit and fight battles. I don't have the time to fight with people who will never change. Yes. And when you do come home, be happy. So if you have a hard day at work, look forward to come home. But when you come home, remember to enjoy. Don't bring the problems, go home. And if you really need to talk, get somebody and talk. Don't make it get to your head. There's a lot of mental health issues here and all over the world. And that's because we hold things in. Everybody wants to look like they're in control, and everybody wants to be that person who problem free. But I say to you, only the dead man don't have a problem. And if he's dead, he has a problem if he hasn't died in the Lord. So if you have issues, find somebody, talk to them. And I know us people, we like to talk about, oh, you go there to think you're mad. No, let it out. Deal with the childhood issues. Some of us have been through some things as children, and we have been through some marriages, and we have been through some betrayal of friendships, and we have been through some things. Process them. And you know what? Sometimes when you process them, you realize that what was reaching you wasn't even racism. It could be that the person was fair, but it's just that where you were at mentally or psychologically.
Yeah.
And that's how you saw it. So while racism is a big deal, work on yourself, work on your self-confidence and all of that. It will push away imposter syndrome. It will make you happier. It will make people related to you happier, and avoid narcissistic people. There are plenty, dime a dozen. People who, when you talk and say something, they shut you down. When you do something, they don't have anything positive to say. And I don't care if they come in the form of your brother, your mother, your friend. Look out and guard the avenue of your mind, because that's where Satan is aiming for. And if he gets there, his work is done. He just leave and go on to the next victim. So when it comes to racism, do not limit yourself. Make sure you check yourself to see that what you think is really is. And make sure too, guys, make sure you're listening. When you go into business, have some integrity. Don't go in there expecting to take and not give. Don't go in there expecting to treat people badly because you were treated badly at some point. Have integrity and do your homework, do your research.
Excellent. In terms of business, you have your own business.
I do.
Empowered A1. Tell us why the name and what does your company do?
First of all, I wanted to call my company Noteworthy. And as I did a poll and did some research, while it was a lovely name for what it was, it didn't have the punch. But I still like the name, and I will use it for my next company. My company is called Be Empowered. Be Empowered. And simply because I couldn't get the domain for that at the time, when I went for it, I put on the A1, meaning second to none, first class. So, hey.
Yeah.
So Be Empowered
Why
A1.
not?
You know, you got to do your thing. Now, one of the things that some of the services that I provide, I do inspirational speaking. I think I'm very qualified to stand in front of people, and I have something to offer. And it doesn't necessarily come from a university. It came from my life experience, and they are varied. So I believe that I can share. And I believe that if there were other people around sharing honestly, but in a wholesome way, then a lot more people could benefit. And a lot more people, meaning everybody. It doesn't matter what color shade or whatever, everybody would benefit. So that was one of the things that service I provide. And being a Toastmaster as well, I used to enter a lot of speaking competition. I'd come first, second, or third. Sometimes I'd just get a certificate for participating. Praise the Lord for that. And he said to me, Claudia, you know, you always speak well and you write very well, because my emails were on point. And he said, have you thought about doing anything in speaking, public speaking? I never thought about it, but it took somebody else to see and to have that interest in what I was doing. And as a result, I said, that's one of the things. Motivational speaking. Now, the public speaking came about because I was sitting, public speaking and leadership, they came together. Whenever I sat in any board meeting, in a boardroom of people, and I sit and I watch the heads of department, how they conduct themselves, I realize why some departments thrive and others don't.
Okay.
How you present yourself in a boardroom will be the difference between you bringing a whole lot of burden down to your department or you bringing them a little bit of burden but a little bit of joy. And it will determine how happy that department is, and it will determine how wholesome an experience those staff members have. I used to see people who can't speak, and I would say, huh? And you're a manager and you're sitting here, but you're not expressing yourself. It's just shocking that it does exist. And these are people who are leading you. They're making decisions that you'll have to follow. And I realize that sometimes people don't even know how to push back, how to be diplomatic, and I said, I used to sit in for some places, for example, there's a time and a place for everything. I may hear something in a boardroom that I don't like, but it may not be the place that I should say so. I can't, yes, but what I can do is I say, oh, I have something to say about this, but I will get in touch and we can speak outside of the realms of this. So you're making the person know without a shadow of a doubt that we're having a conversation. But you're not going to front them. You're not going to show them up in front of people. And you're going to do it in a way that they're not going to think it's anything, you're having a stab at them. And sometimes it's not what we say, it's how. It's not what we do, it's how. So when I saw these type of things amongst leaders, how they express themselves, and when they're under pressure, what came out, then I thought, nah, we can do better. We can do better. And I believe that when I said I was going to open my business, Be Empowered A1, and offer public speaking, which, praise the Lord for the church. We cannot fault the church, whether Adventist, any. The church have speakers. We learn to talk in church. We learn to debate. If you sit on a church board, you'll understand. You learn to debate. You learn to express yourself. You learn these things. And it's a privilege that a lot of people do not have, I'm telling you. So when I heard it, I said, nah, this is something I can do. This is a need. Problem with this need is not everybody want to acknowledge that they need it. It's a bit tricky. Yes. So motivational speaking, inspirational speaking, leadership, public speaking. I can help people with those things. Life coaching, yes, I do it. And I tell you what, it's my least favorite, but it's the one that I get almost equal work as public speaking with. I get a lot from that. And I do enjoy, once I start, I enjoy. But you know, when you go somewhere and say, that is what I want to do, but something else comes up. That's what happens with life coaching. I did it and said, I'm going to do life coaching. And then you hear somebody say, oh, I want to stop smoking. And you're like, do I want to do this? Do I want to tell people how to stop smoke and lose weight? Because that means I have to go look like a, stick thin. And then, because you got to look like what you're. And then you start to realize, Claudia, be comfortable with yourself.
Yes.
Right? I'm not fat, but I'm curvy and I'm happy. And then you start to realize sometimes that is not what people's problems are. That's what they think, and they come to you.
Yes.
And so they come to you for public speaking, only to realize that that's not what their problem is. Nothing to do with public speaking. It has to do with some issues from way back when that they haven't resolved.
Yeah. So what are some of the signs?
And so then you can say, okay, you need.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so you're beginning to realize that, I need a friend who is a counselor. Because when I come across this, I have to stop public speaking and say, okay, I have somebody to refer you to.
Yeah.
And then you have people who, we don't gel. They need my service, but we don't gel. I need to have another friend. And I would say, hey, I think you'd be best suited for this person. Have a chat. And if you think it's fine, come and let me know. I'm happy to help you transition.
Mm.
And they thank you for it later.
Mm.
Because maybe you were there for something else for them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just to identify what the issue was and
Yeah.
send them somewhere else to resolve it.
Yeah.
And so you learn to work with different people in other sphere. You know quite a number of pastors who you'd refer people to. You know counselors who you refer people to. You know other public speaker coach that you'd refer people to. You know other radio presenters that you could give a topic to deal with. And so you learn. You were asking me something?
Oh, I was going to ask before I go to that one. I've just remembered earlier you said integrity, because someone may think, Claudia, you're letting go of a business opportunity. You're letting go of a client by sending them to somebody else just because you can't gel. Like, why can't you suck it up? So what would be your response to that?
Let me tell you about gelling. If you're working for money, you'll gel with everything and anyone. And I am not the only person. I'm not the only coach, counselor, psychologist. People will tell you when you're dealing with things of that nature, trust becomes a big issue.
Yes.
People have to trust you enough and value you enough to want to tell you all of what they're going to pour out. Sometimes the gel means that you are not prepared for what is coming and you can sense it. It is not necessarily that the person is wrong or you're wrong. Sometimes you're not prepared for it. And sometimes where the person is at, they are better elsewhere. They are better with somebody who is better able to do it. So you have to know your strengths. You have to know your limitations. You have to know how to identify opportunities. And if money is what you're chasing, you'll find out sooner than later that it doesn't always work like that. So when you go to do counseling and so on, people always have consultations. The consultations are used for that. They're used to say, okay, you have an issue. Do you have time to deal with that issue? Do you have a budget to deal with that issue? And can the issue be resolved between the two of us? Can we deal with it adequately? And if one is lacking, then it falls. People will thank you later.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is important. You have to, when you learn about people come to me for public speaking. By the time they finish, I've learned so much about them. And they've learned about themselves. And I've learned about me because that person pulls something out that nobody else tapped into.
Exactly.
And so it is. So, and when you're leading, when you're talking to leaders are people who are usually good at giving the orders. They give the orders. They tell people what to do. When they come to you, they're not a leader anymore. They're just a person dealing with something. And then you have to help them sort that out and show it how it affects their role as a leader. Because it is a role. And that's how we get on when we do that. You don't go, oh, he's a boss person, I can't talk to him. You establish how we speak with each other, where our safe spaces are. When I have to tell you stuff that is not favorable, and you got to hear it, you paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
So those are some of the those are some of the
Yeah.
things. So yes, you can have people who you can say no to. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem with the person or you, but sometimes that is not the perfect fit. And don't take people's monies if it's not going to work. And don't do it. I've seen people do it. You will lose integrity. They'll realize in the end that you took them for one, and they won't argue. Some of them, they just won't come back.
And the thing is, when people have a bad experience, they'll tell it to about maybe 10 people. So it really is worth losing your trust with one person over money. And I love that you're sharing all this, because by the time people will be watching this episode, I'd have done an episode a few episodes before talking on why people struggle to seek help. And sometimes, yes, they've had a bad experience where maybe they could just tell maybe later on that the person was just after their money and not help. And sometimes help means when sending you to somebody else, like you said, another counselor, another
sending you to the right
coach,
place
and
and the right
sometimes you're
person.
just not a fit places. That's